Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us in the world. Thank you all for coming here today for our August 2025 edition of the Windows 365 AMA. I have some awesome guests here today that we will introduce in a quick second. I do want to throw some highlights since I know that we haven't convened here for about 2 months since June. So I want to throw in some highlights, even some as recent as this week. So earlier this week, you might have seen Gartner published their new DaaS, the Desktop as a Service Magic Quadrant. So that includes both Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365 together as a Microsoft solution. And you can see our own Stefan Kindestrand posted a blog about this, and it has a link to that Gartner Magic Quadrant. You can check that blog out at aka.ms/DAASMQ2025 blog. Sneak peek, it's a good read. We have a couple other product updates from the last 2 months. One of them is that for the service for Windows 365 Cloud PCs, if those are deprovisioned due to license expiration, we have a new preview where you can actually recover those. And those, we take a snapshot right before we deprovision. It's a new snapshot that you'll see in the restore options as a user and admin. So if that ever happens to you, maybe don't tempt fate, but it is there now for if a user or if your licenses do expire. And that's as a preview right now. Another thing that we finalized in the service is that select redirections are disabled by default. For newly provisioned and reprovisioned Cloud PCs. These are the clipboard drive, the opaque low-level USB redirection, and the printer redirection. And that's just secure by default. You always have the option to configure those back on for those users or for the Cloud PCs using Intune device configuration policy. So that is live now. And then we have 2 updates on our Windows apps. So one is that the web client that is now at the windows.cloud.microsoft domain, which is consistent with the other services that Microsoft is releasing. So we had that go live. So you might start seeing, if you had bookmark connections, you might start seeing that domain. Don't worry, that's where we want to be. And then the last piece is that Microsoft Teams went public preview. The Microsoft Teams optimizations went public preview on our Android client. And back in June, it went public preview on our iOS. So now across our native clients, Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, you can use these optimizations, at least in preview or GA. So definitely go check that out. We're working on the web. We know that's also top ask, but at least on the native clients, that's available to you. So for all of these news, for any other upcoming news as well, please bookmark, keep checking our aka.ms/W365 What's New. All right. And then also, yes, our Windows app What's New, aka.ms/Windows app What's New. So keep those 2 bookmarked for any information you want to check in on as we release new stuff. So with those out of the way, let's go ahead and introduce our guests for today. I think maybe all of you have joined before, so this is a great little reunion cast here. I'll start with you, Donna, and then Logan, Andre. If you could just give a reminder to folks of who you are, what you're working on for the team.
Sounds good. So hello, everyone. I'm Donna Ryan. I'm a CAT PM on our product group. CAT stands for Customer Acceleration Team. So what that means is I'm actually predominantly customer facing. I work with our customers to make sure that they can take advantage of the services, find out what's blocking them, help to get the things that they want to see in the service, gather their feedback and work to help get that implemented. So both our customers and our service can be successful. Kind of as a side hustle, if you will, I've also been focusing a lot as of late on PowerShell, Graph, and our GitHub repo. So been spending a good amount of time on that as well.
And I'm Logan. I'm a feature PM on the team, and we work really closely with the CAT team, and Donna, on taking customer feedback and turning that into feature improvements, like the updates that Christian talked through. So awesome collaboration there, trying to make sure we're really focused on customer promises and driving improvements. I specifically work on Windows 365 Reserve, which you may have heard about over the past month or so. And so I'm super excited to answer any questions on that today. I've also worked on monitoring for AVD in the past and have a passion around that. And yeah, excited to be here. I also work with Andre really closely.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. My name is Andre. As Logan mentioned, we work very closely on various areas. My job description is almost identical to Logan's, feature PM on Windows 365 and the AVD team. I work on business continuity and disaster recovery for Windows 365. I'm happy to cover those topics for today. I also work on one of the new initiatives we recently started, or let's say early this year, Migration API, which enables you to easily migrate from wherever you are today to Windows 365. Previously, I worked on the Linux SDK and integration of Windows 365 with our VDI partners like Citrix and Omnissa and HP. So happy to be here and have a great discussion today.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to have all of you here because I feel like, especially now, now that's August, we have a lot of folks that were on summer or, for our Southern Hemisphere, our winter breaks as well. And we just have a lot of, a lot of coverage when it comes to business continuity, disaster recovery, and just being a reliable option for customers as a service for access to a Windows desktop. So I'm glad to have you both here for that. And I guess maybe Logan, just at a brief level, for folks that actually haven't heard of Windows 365 Reserve, can you just give us a top level summary of what that is?
Definitely. So it's a little different from Frontline and Enterprise Windows 365. We are very familiar, and we've heard from our customers, and we believe in the value prop that Cloud PCs bring to users in availability and resiliency. This idea of you can access from any desktop, anywhere via the Windows app. There's a lot of power with that. And with Windows 365 Reserve, we wanted to bring some of that power to users who are still not on Cloud PCs. They're still using their physical PCs, and try to think about, we think that a more purpose-built temporary solution, so 10 days per user per year of Cloud PC time, is something that can be really valuable, whether it's an emergency scenario, your device is down. We all have one that probably comes to mind. I've spilled coffee on my laptop. My sister's cat chewed her keyboard and ended up, sending it to the repair, and she was down for a day. Things happen. And so having that limited access available when you need it, if you can just log in from your iPad or a personal device and get connected so quickly, that's what we're trying to do with Windows 365 Reserve. So it's an annual license to be there when you need it, and it gives you access at a right-sized access if you're not ready for a full Cloud PC monthly plan on Frontline or Enterprise. So yeah, we can get into details and features. It is slightly different. The value prop is pretty different. The licensing model is pretty different, but it's the same Cloud PC that users know and love. And we're just trying to provide that to more scenarios and more users.
Yeah, one thing I was just thinking of as you were talking about how a device can go down, this pairs out really well with the conditional access through Entra, because more and more, it sounds like customers, and Donna, maybe you actually have a lot more insight on this. You talk to customers every day.
Yes, it is.
But it feels like a lot of customers are really trying to lock down conditional access with Microsoft Zero Trust strategy of usually accessing data from like a device that is managed or meets a specific security posture. So like I know there are some customers that say, okay, you can only access M365 apps. So yeah, Word, Outlook, Teams, all that stuff when you're coming from a managed device. So like Logan, to your point, if your managed device that your company shipped to you and you spill coffee on it, you're like, okay, cool. Well, I have my phone, but just my phone isn't enough.
Nope.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and there's a discussion about managed or unmanaged on mobile forms. But like, okay, if you have your own PC, how can you then use that to be just your window into your work?
Absolutely. And I should say too, I focused more on the unmanaged side. Like I think there's a ton of value prop that we've seen for being able to connect securely to your work resources from any device using security policies like conditional access. However, even if you aren't comfortable making that transition to support unmanaged devices as an organization, we still believe there's a lot of management and IT value in using Reserve to handle scenarios like this. I also should mention, while we are looking at PC failure scenarios, we think that's a huge value prop. There could be other use cases too. We hear a lot of customers who want to start trialing Cloud PC access. This is a great way to test this. You get 10 days per year. And then there are also like app compat testing. If you're migrating to Windows 11 and you're on Windows 10 today, this is another good option for testing app compatibility. We're starting to hear more scenarios too on like device shipment times for new employees, like trying to use this to fit that scenario. If device shipment is delayed, like how do you get your new users up and running on their first day? That tends to be a pretty big key priority for organizations and HR. So yeah, we're hearing lots of unique use cases come up too. The backup plan, having this access is pretty valuable, and being able to just connect from anywhere as quickly as you can. Provisioning time does not take very long. Those who use Cloud PCs know that. Just being able to have that when you need it is really helpful.
Awesome. And I guess maybe this kind of goes between what you and Andre have been working on. How does this relate to like snapshotting features that we have in Windows 365, or does it?
It's pretty different. So this is more intended for users in physical PCs. Like I think I'll let Andre talk to the work that he's doing. But on that case, we're more looking at snapshotting your VMs. However, I'll just call out like for what's available when you get onto your Reserve Cloud PC. It's not going to be a replica of that device that went down. However, most organizations are using cloud storage for their users today. So when you log in, what it's doing is Reserve is managed via Intune. And so we use Intune to pull your device policies, device policies, settings, security posture that's associated with the user groups and the device groups that you are in, and pull that so that when you go onto your Cloud PC, you'll still see all of your work resources that you would typically have on your work managed PC. And then you can easily access your files from OneDrive. It's pretty quick to get back up and running with all of your data there. Just want to call out, it's not like, oh, my laptop closed and then I open my Cloud PC and it's the same view. We're not taking snapshots of that and downloading it. We're just leveraging the Intune policies there.
And
Andre, I don't know if you want to talk more about.
That's the great context, Logan. I just wanted to continue your story because that's Reserve part of the story. Now we have I mentioned 2 work streams I'm working on. One of them is migration API. And as I said, the goal of that migration API is to enable customers to migrate from wherever they are today to Windows 365. And there are various scenarios. One of them is physical devices, and we are currently in the private preview, which supports migrating from Azure VMs to Windows 365. So only Azure VMs at the moment with the current phase 1 scope. But right now we are actually very actively exploring doing exactly what you asked about, Christian, and that is taking a snapshot of the physical device and taking that VHD snapshot and provisioning Cloud PC from that snapshot. So basically migrating from physical device to Windows 365. There are a lot of challenges, a lot of differences, like for example, physical TPM on a device, multiple partitions like CDE drives on physical devices, which are not supported on Windows 365, etc. So there are various scenarios, various challenges, and obstacles on that path. But definitely, we are actively exploring how we can support it. Maybe we can do it in phases, and have some requirements for VHD to be supported. But definitely, a scenario that you mentioned, Christian, is something that we are actively exploring. In addition, that's going to be very complementary to what Logan described for
Right.
Reserve and what she's working on. So I believe it's going to be like the full package once we have that covering both sides of stories for customers.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. Is that Reserve, like, just to kind of summarize what I'm hearing from both of you, is that Reserve is essentially a new Cloud PC, but within the Microsoft ecosystem of Intune, OneDrive, etc., that you can get productive right away because hopefully you are using those options for your files. But separately, we're trying to make it easier for you to come into your own Windows 365 Cloud PC, whether it's an Azure VM or whether it's a physical device. So yeah, I definitely do see those as kind of complementary. And so it would be, in the future, it'll be really cool to see, if, how, when those two kind of intersect. But I know right now there's like two parallel, streams.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so,
I mean, Reserve is definitely like more in a business continuity disaster recovery work stream to enable customers to have as low as possible downtime and to enable them to start working immediately, continuing to work, versus migration is something you decided, okay, I really want to move to cloud and continue full-time working in cloud, whether it's enterprise, frontline, etc. That's where migration sits.
awesome. And actually, Donna, one of the questions I had was, when you're talking to customers, where in the discussions does all of this business continuity or just continued access, where does this come into the conversation? Like, how early are customers thinking about this?
I think in the very beginning, that's a common question that comes up, just from a general knowledge. Usually, we end up talking more about the inbox features that we have for BCDR. Our PointInTimeRestore. The availability zones that are backed by the Windows 365 service. And then we'll start getting into those conversations again. Once we start, pilots are completed, we're starting more into production, and then those concerns come out. Okay, so what happens? And then that's a topic that gets revisited. And those conversations usually, revolve around how much downtime is really tolerable. How often is this going to happen? Because we do have add-on capabilities to quicken a recovery time in the case of a regional failure or a major outage. We have those additional features that can get folks up and running almost immediately. But that may not necessarily be a good fit for every single information worker. So then those conversations come down to the good old-fashioned conversations of use case and personas or scenarios, and who is who needs to be back up immediately, who needs to be back up in a couple hours. That's where those conversations usually start taking place, especially when we start looking at onboarding people's bosses or managers, because nobody wants to be caught up in a resume generating event. So very, very good conversations to have, but there's some design decisions and cost considerations that go into this.
Resume generating event. I've never heard that phrase before, but I'm glad I have now.
And I learned that one years ago from doing OSD, where you don't inadvertently want to push a task sequence down to the CEO's computer at 1 p.m.
No, that's great. No, that makes sense of a kind of initial checkbox. I'm like, all right, cool, sounds good. You have a capability. Now it's pilot. Okay, now we really need to talk about it. That makes sense. you were talking about how we have these additional capabilities for I forget if it was like faster, the region failover and stuff. Andre, we have this like disaster recovery, like some built in, but then also a license. Can you talk about those?
Yeah, sure. Happy to talk a little bit more. So we have three different options for customers for business continuity and disaster recovery with Windows 365. There's a built-in option, as you mentioned, Christian, which is called PointInTimeRestore, and that's the one that's included with every Cloud PC. It's free of charge, meaning it's included with your Cloud PC license, and it enables you to restore to any specific restore point that any specific snapshot that you have in a list of your restore points within the same region. So it doesn't include cross region. I'm going to cover that separately, but within the same region, that's automatically there. We take 10 snapshots every between 4 to 24 hours. That's configurable in Intune. So admins can configure how frequently the snapshots are taken. Again, default is 12. So that means you're going to have 2 snapshots per day with 10 snapshots that we keep. It's going to mean 5 days worth of snapshots, of backup snapshots for each Cloud PC. In addition, we call that short-term snapshots. And in addition to 10 short-term snapshots, we also keep 4 long-term snapshots, meaning for the last 4 weeks, we keep 1 snapshot. So you can go all the way 1 month back. We have 1 snapshot per week plus 10 short-term snapshots. And in addition to these 14 snapshots, we have option for IT admins to take 1 manual snapshots at any time. So these are all collectively called point-in-time snapshots or point-in-time-restore. Now we have 2 what we call optional disaster recovery options, which are behind paid licenses. One is cross-region disaster recovery. And with cross-region disaster recovery, we will always take the latest snapshot from point-in-time-restore and copy that snapshot to the backup region. Cross-region disaster recovery enables admins to configure backup region in Intune for each Cloud PC or for group of users that they want. So it has to be different from your primary region, of course. So you would have backup region, and again, we will take every point-in-time snapshot and move it to or copy it to the backup region. We only keep the latest one, of course. Now, restore point. Donna was mentioning the restore time. So restore time objective is up to 4 hours from the time you initiate or you activate your cross-region disaster recovery, and same for point-in-time restore. So that's the maximum time required to have your Cloud PC up and running in the backup region. Restore point objective, or RPO, which is the second parameter, is really defined by the frequency of taking snapshots. So if you define that to be 12 hours, then your restore point will be up to 12 hours or shorter, depending when the actual outage happened. So maximum of 12 hours, or between 4 and 24. Now we also have the third option that that's the closest to active environment, which we released just recently on April 1st, which is called the Disaster Recovery Plus. That's also a paid option, and to make it simple, we pretty much keep your Cloud PC in a backup region. Again, you have to configure the backup region, which is different from your primary region. We have a backup PC pretty much up and running all the time for you. And we take the snapshot every 1 hour and copy that snapshot from your primary region to your backup region. So it's not really connected to your point-in-time snapshots. We take the snapshot every 60 minutes. And the recovery time objective is up to 30 minutes. In our testing, in reality, it's really lower than that, but up to 30 minutes, your Cloud PC is up and running. The time needed is really to swap the disk in that backup region with the snapshot that we copy there. restore point objective apparently is up to 60 minutes, up to 1 hour, depending when the outage happened, when you initiated the restore. But these are the three options. 2 of them are paid, and 1 of them is free, again, included your Cloud PC.
Okay, yeah, I want to do a kind of quick summary because you started off with the point in time restore. That's just the what's in the service, and that was also what I mentioned on the announcement of having if a license expires and having this new snapshot included there that you can restore to once your Cloud PC is up. So that was the first option, just generally. So that's the aka.ms / PointInTimeRestore. And then yeah, you started talking about the cross region, right? The aka.ms / W365 / cross region recovery. So in this case, you said it will do it'll do that failover. It's not as fast as the more paid license, but it has that cross region. And then you ended up with the disaster recovery plus. So you can check out more information at aka.ms / W365 / recovery plus. In my head as you're talking, Andre, I was like, I'm picturing this table because I think maybe it was the blog post on Recovery Plus that had these like side by side, and you're like, okay, I get it now, because it's I value that you and the team kind of set up all these different options. That way, it's okay. It's not just one or the other. You have a range that fits your needs. But obviously, when there's more options, there's more complexity.
Yeah, and optional disaster recovery, which are cross-region, and disaster recovery plus, are really real disaster recovery options in case region goes down and you want to recover as quickly as possible in the backup region and continue working with one of the snapshots from before. Point-in-time restore really, besides being disaster recovery, it also helps with any user errors or admin errors.
Yeah,
or
any oopsies.
Exactly. So, I really shouldn't have, updated this driver. Now it broke something. Let me go back in time. So these kind of errors. And one interesting fact is that CrowdStrike. Everybody, I believe, remember CrowdStrike. Over 95% of Windows 365 users were able to self-help themselves and recover their Cloud PC without support from Microsoft, without raising any tickets, so using point-in-time restore. So they just needed to go back in time before the CrowdStrike, restore to that point, and continue working with the snapshot before the CrowdStrike. So
right,
that was really great. That was
right,
really
because that's just a time where it was a faulty update that the admin's able to then block, and then users just went back to previous time where they had the previous version, and then they were no longer being offering the update. So yeah, I think like you mentioned, it can kind of be across the board, whether it's user or admin led, but being able to fall back to a healthy point. So yeah, I think that's a good summary, because point in time restore is built in. It's a little bit more can help the one-off oopsies. I've definitely done a driver update and just like it's just wrecked my Cloud PC. I'm like, let me just go back and not take it. But yeah, whereas the others are more actual disaster recovery failover. So cool. So all the folks that are listening, I know that was a lot. Andre, thank you for I feel like you explained that as well as you could have for not having like a PowerPoint slide next to you. So thank you for doing that from memory.
That was the best I could do. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. We have a question for folks. So let's see. This will be for Logan. Someone asked, I'm confused. Is Windows 365 Reserve a different SKU from Enterprise or Frontline, or is it an add-on?
It's a different license. So it's actually one SKU. So with Windows 365 Reserve, it is intended to hit user scenarios where they're not likely to have like regular use on a Cloud PC, but you want it available for them for a temporary period of time on demand. So it could be like unpredictable usage, very limited usage. If you expect to use more than 10 days in a year, like probably a better fit for Frontline or Enterprise. And I'm being careful about talking about it's a separate license type versus SKU, because with Reserve, with Frontline and Enterprise, you select your SKU size, storage size, and you go from there. With Reserve, it's one offer. There's only one default size, and we manage a lot on behalf of the Reserve users and Reserve customers. So it's intended to be much simpler because it is also lower usage. We want it to be easier to deploy, easier to manage, lighter touch, and you only have to go and use it when you need it. So we wrap it like in a provisioning policy for Enterprise and Frontline. If you're familiar, you have a lot of configuration options. For Reserve, including SKU type, we make a lot of decisions on behalf of the customers there too. And that helps us with keeping it really simple and fast. It doesn't require prior Windows 365 expertise. If this is a scenario or use case that's managed by a different IT team, they don't have to go and look at what size Cloud PC do I want, where's my custom image that I want to go and deploy and apply things like that. It's supposed to be much easier and faster to use. It also, some of these decisions and simplicity also make it easier for us to be efficient and offer this at an affordable entry point. And then it also helps us ensure we make a lot of calls that reduce the complexity when you go on provision so that you have a higher likelihood of getting that provisioning successful quickly when you actually need it in emergency scenarios. So just to call out like a couple of the differences in a Reserve provisioning policy, on the license side, when you're purchasing, it's just one option. There's no additional sizes. And then when you go into the provisioning policy, you're only choosing your geography. So you don't specify a particular region. This helps us migrate to different regions that have capacity so that you have more options in capacity constraints. We don't offer custom images. It's all gallery images. So that helps us ensure that we can provision you quickly and successfully when needed. We also believe that because this is mapped more towards your physical device users, custom images aren't as much of a concept in physical devices. So pulling your Intune profile in with your organization policies and applications from Intune seems to be sufficient. We'd love to hear too if there are any blockers or requests here. We've already heard, hey, I need specific applications, like let's go talk through. But we really want to get feedback on that aspect. And then there's one other area that I wanted to mention. Microsoft hosted network. We do not support ANCs or custom networks. It's all Microsoft hosted network. So there are very few decisions. You essentially go select the geo. You have a couple options if you want to manage the language pack, if you want to assign like specific username configurations, scope tags. But then it's just you have to apply the existing Entra user group and your policy is set. We don't provision when you create the policy like we do for Frontline and Enterprise, but we create the record and then provisioning for Reserve becomes a device action that you can take when you need to.
Interesting.
Awesome. Yeah, I personally have dealt with custom images failing all the time, so I think it makes sense right now that we don't and leverage Intune for all the apps and configurations. So.
And yeah, and I think it's fair, like custom images, custom networks can be really critical for our Enterprise and Frontline customers, people who are using these devices as their primary machines. What we heard in our research when going and starting to build Reserve is organizations prioritized ability to get up and running quickly and successfully over everything. Like they need their users connected. And so that's what the reasoning behind a lot of these decisions that we made. So interesting. And we're in our limited public preview right now. And so I'm really excited. We're starting to hear feedback. Again, if you have specific requests, features that you want to see in there, let us know. We'd love to hear it.
Sweet. We did have a question come in from the tech community. Let's see. So going off topic with a general question, because this is AMA. Yes, agreed. Thank you for asking a question. This is for everything. Do you have any dates for when Windows 365 cloud apps will become available? Yeah, so maybe Donna, maybe you can speak to this.
Sure. So we don't have any dates that are we can announce. That's all still very TBD. Within our preview, we're still trying to make sure that we have the service built correctly. It's makes customers happy. It works as anticipated. All that kind of fun stuff. So we're still just a little bit of a work in progress. No dates that can be announced. But if you wanted to get on the inside scoop of what we've got in previews, whether that's public preview, private preview, or even just interested in maybe doing something like a focus group so you can give feedback to PMs. Can't recommend this enough. Our customer connection program. It is a fantastic thing that customers can join. You can get roadmaps, preview information. You can sign up if a preview is something that you or your organization is going to absolutely need, and you want to get your fingerprints all over it. By all means, sign up, join, participate. All of our feature PMs, as we're building features, we need to solicit feedback. We go through the CCP. It's absolutely just wonderfully run and a wealth of information. So I cannot recommend that highly enough. If you're not a part of that, by all means, go sign up. It's free, and you can get a good idea of what's coming up.
Yeah, exactly. Like what Donna mentioned, the customer connection page program. Yeah, we post there for all the things. So like if there's an interest form of, hey, we're thinking about this preview, or Logan, you mentioned earlier you're doing research and surveys to understand what customers are looking for Windows 365 Reserve. Like we use that private community to get that information. So definitely, if you're interested in providing that information and being part of that discussion early on, like Donna mentioned, the link is here, the aka.ms/join community. And then the last thing I think from the Cloud Apps discussion, I think the last time we had really talked about it was back in June. We had both our June announcements that Windows 365 Reserve was announced on, and then exactly, and then we also had Cloud Apps. So if you want to just go take a look at that blog, for things that are coming out later this year, and just get a refresher. That is at aka.ms/resilience in the cloud. All right, cool. So we got through a lot of stuff. What I was thinking of, so Logan, maybe you can answer this a bit more. You were talking a bit about trying to gauge whether a user will be like an infrequent user or potentially needs more access. Yeah, how do you all think of Reserve versus like Frontline shared? And also, I think you said 10 days for like activity. How does that how's that 10 days get tracked? Is it like continuous?
Yeah.
Is it like date wise?
So talking to your first question first, Reserve. So if you can think of, at least in the enterprise world, we've got enterprise, we've got Frontline, and now we have or will have Reserve. Frontline is great for shift work, still regular usage, but maybe you don't need that fully available Cloud PC to you 24/7. Enterprise this is my Cloud PC. It's mine. It is like my physical device that I get for work. And then Reserve is for I'd say flexible on-demand usage, but it's going to be lower rate. So if I am not coming in and using it on a very regular basis, I have my physical laptop that I got from my office. Like that's what I'm using as my primary device. And Reserve is more if I want the flexibility to connect to a Cloud PC when I need it, but I'm not expecting to do it that often. So I did say 10 days per user per year or per license per year. If, for example, if I have my physical PC, this is really valuable to have as a solution that's there when I need it. If my device fails, typically what organizations have today in these failure scenarios, just to set some context too, because we don't really think about it too much until it happens. They usually have a pool of older hardware, like loaner devices that are on site. This gets really expensive, complicated to manage because they are like outdated hardware. So you have to keep that regularly up to date. and that also the older hardware leads to it's not the most consistent performance experience when you're actually on it. And in a hybrid workforce like that, we are all pretty distributed still. So the shipment times get really challenging. I work in Los Angeles. Microsoft is headquartered up in Seattle. When my device failed, I had to wait for that to get shipped, and that gets really expensive. So this idea of being able to provision in minutes, of course, that depends on your organization policies. Being able to get connected and back up and running when that fails is really, really useful. We hear this too, like organizations use VDI for these kinds of scenarios, VDI and Cloud PCs today, but it's pretty expensive. It's usually only if they have these solutions deployed for other scenarios, more permanent scenarios within their organization, and can just pull and leverage that when a user needs it for a more temporary use case, but it's not purpose built. And so with Reserve, we're trying to toe that line. So I'd say that's kind of how I'd position it near Frontline and Enterprise. All great solutions, all meeting different use cases in your organization. Now sorry, go ahead. And then I'll answer the 10 days.
Well, I think to your point on the Frontline is basically you're almost you're more regularly expecting to use that device, whether it's Frontline dedicated, which is shift, or Frontline shared, which is task focused. Like you're probably going to be using that, checking in like once a week or something. Whereas we were saying with Reserve, it's when you need it, but you don't really need it until you need
it. Exactly. Less regular usage than you would expect for Frontline, Frontline shared as well. Thank you. I totally missed calling out Frontline shared specifically. So, but yes. And then on the 10 days front, it's 10 days of provisioning time. We are very closely monitoring feedback here to see, hey, does this feel natural? Does this feel smooth enough? So when you go, and again, it's kind of a unique concept for Reserve. When you need it, as an IT, you go and provision that device for specific users, groups, whatever it may be. And that's what starts your 10-day meter. We also hand IT and end users the ability to stop that clock by deprovisioning the device. We don't expect you to closely manage that. Like if I'm leaving for a coffee break, like I'm going to leave my Reserve Cloud PC up and running because I expect to come back. But if I got my Reserve Cloud PC, I'm using it, 2 days later, I don't need it anymore, then that's when we would expect to deprovision. And we're investigating a whole bunch of ways to make this easier and lighter touch, both for IT and for users. We're looking at building auto deprovision schedules based on like, hey, you've been idle for a while, like let's go and turn that off. We're trying to look at a bunch of ways and get feedback on how to make this a little bit more flexible. But to start, that's how it works today. And it's not localized. It's your day is 24 hours from when the device is provisioned. So you will have lots of visible tracking too. And in Intune, you see how many days left you have. And then on the end user side too, you can click and see like, okay, I have access until this point. If I deprovision today, here's how much time I would have remaining.
Awesome. And actually, one question we had before we switch topics, is, will Windows 365 Reserve work on the new Windows 365 Link devices?
I can't answer that yet, but we're absolutely working on it. I guess what I should say is I can't answer any timelines on that yet, but we're definitely working with the Link team. We see some value there too. And more to say soon.
Cool. Good to know. Yeah, because I know that those ones right now, they have the like the little square puck form factors that are touchdown stations. So like,
absolutely.
If you come into the office, like if you're around, there's only one of us that's actually around Seattle in this room right now. But if that was there, then you would have maybe a workstation to go to, right?
Well, and I was kind of thinking that might be a good scenario because Logan, you'd mentioned how it's being done today when somebody loses or destroys their machine, where they're given an old machine that may or may not have all the shift buttons in there, and then those have to go back into a pile and they get pixie booted and re-imaged. And just thinking that the Link may be a killer fit for there, and so it's essentially a device they don't really have to touch. They get it, check it back in.
100%. And if there are organizations still not comfortable with a fully unmanaged device, profile, like this is a great solution for updating how you do this process today. Yeah, absolutely. I think it completely makes sense. I'm super excited to share more later on.
Coming soon.
Hopefully we'll have ETAs very, very soon.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Awesome. So go ahead.
I just want to just give a quick shout out to if you haven't tried or seen the Windows 365 link, it is a fantastic little device. I actually use it as my daily driver. I'm not, obviously not in a shared scenario, but what I love with it is I've got actually hooked up to a KVM, so I've got my personal machine and my link, and I can keep work and personal completely separated. Just push the button and swap back and forth. It is to me, it's a superior experience. So if you're on the fence or you're thinking about it, it's absolutely worth trying to get your hands on one. Kicking the tires on it, I think you'd end up finding that end users would really, really dig it. And admins like it because it's really easy, locked down and secure.
I'm also biased towards it because I did work with that team for a long time. So it's a great solution. You should try it.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, especially because you have a because it supports the passkeys and FIDO keys. So if you have either the USB A or USB C key, it's just so easy to enter your PIN, touch the security key, and then you're in. So.
Yep.
All right. Question from Tovar on Tech Community. What is one must-have Intune policy to always deploy to Windows 365 Cloud PCs? I'm trying to build out a solid baseline for policy deployment. I'm gonna go to you, Donna.
That's a tricky one because it depends on what your primary focus is. If it was going to be security, I would probably look at clipboard redirection. That was a lot of work went into controlling the unidirectional and bidirectional, and then granular control over what things want to be copied. I think that's one that's for a good shout out. I'm kind of thinking I'm going to fall back on my old consulting mindset here when I was asked, what's the most important, things to do machine? Well, it's to patch it. We have the auto patch feature within Windows 365. It makes it really easy to keep your cloud PCs up to date and secure with with very little configuration and hassle. So that would be one. I would absolutely recommend looking at. Another good configuration, maybe not necessarily Intune policy, but Entra join only. I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing about break up with your domain controllers and get away from hybrid, but it's still absolutely true, especially when you're looking at something like Windows 365, where it's just stupid easy to deploy en masse with Entra joined and MHN. I'm still blown away how ridiculously simple it is. Looking back at the days of task sequences and build benches and all of those options, and now we've got it distilled to a handful of things. So so I guess looking to sum that up, clipboard redirection, auto patching just in general, and then of course break up with your domain controller.
Yeah, a fun little history lesson. I remember back, actually, I think it was before Azure Virtual Desktop, and it was deploying remote desktop services on Azure. Even with the templates that we provided, the success rate was like low double digits because it's always like domain controller, network, and basically you had to figure out the right hit 10 errors, that way your next one could be successful, and then you're like, okay, that was secret sauce, and you screenshot it, or you save that template, okay, this has all the right things. This is what I want. Whereas the MHN, the Microsoft hosted network for Cloud PCs and to join is so easy. Let's see, we have probably one or two more questions left. Then what I think you'll probably had joined me since, but I always love to do tips and tricks. So this was a little early inside of tips and tricks. I'm sure you have another one too, Donna. But tips and tricks for folks listening, for things to learn or try. So we'll do 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll jump into that. So one question we have is, this is going back to the point-in-time-restore and the disaster recovery options. How do all these recovery options take compliance into account? Can you walk through any special considerations or reports that we should keep in mind? So, Andre, I think
Well,
you're probably
question for me.
best.
Okay. Yeah. So talking about compliance, I mean that's a broad topic, obviously within Microsoft for each and every feature. How do we think about compliance? We do not keep any customer data. We don't have access to any customer data, and every feature we develop, including all 3 offerings for Windows 365, will go through very deep and detailed privacy and compliance review internally to make sure that we always comply with all the regulation and all the requirements. So whether it's point-in-time-restore, whether it's cross-region or DR+, it's always within the customer ownership of the data, all the customer information, and we don't really have any access to it, and we make sure that it's protected, it's secure, and it's always within required boundaries. I don't know if there's any additional context that you wanted to cover with this question, Christian, or just to make sure that our audience is aware how we actually keep the data and comply with the compliance requirements.
Yeah, I'm not super sure. I was just thinking, if we had Steve Thomas on the call, he could talk about Purview a lot. So, Don, I don't know if you have any knowledge into Purview. I have a feeling that's where compliance would go into consideration.
Yeah.
That's the question. Yeah, I see now the question coming from the audience. Okay. Sorry,
Yeah,
Donna, go ahead.
Because I myself am not super knowledgeable into Purview, but I imagine it's just that I know one of the things with snapshotting is making sure that the device is healthy. It has a trust with Entra, well, either Entra joined or through the domain controller through Entra hybrid joined. That way it can check into all the Entra related services. But yeah, I don't have any specific info on compliance.
Yeah, again, from the compliance review, as I mentioned, and the second part of the question is, are there any special considerations or reports to keep in mind? The Intune does provide a report about your optional disaster recovery status in terms of if you have activated optional disaster recovery, DR plus or cross-region disaster recovery, you'll have the report to see everything that's happening within your tenant. And actually, we are currently working on improving this reporting, being more proactive to give you information about the health of your disaster recovery snapshots. So, but there are no special consideration from the customer perspective, if that's the question here that you really need to be aware of or take care of.
Maybe related. For the cross-region disaster recovery and then disaster recovery plus, Andre, can you remind me, do those recovery actions happen automatically, or does the admin get notified and they have to manually trigger it?
So the recovery has to happen manually. There's no automation at this point. Another thing we are actively investigating to see, because that's a common ask, common kind of request coming from customers to automate recovery in case of outage. And the challenge we have here is that different customers have different definition of outage or disaster. So we are trying to nail that down, to narrow down the disaster, and actually to see how much we can bring these settings to customers to define their definition of outage. So let's say if devices are not accessible for last 10 minutes or half an hour or whatever, then there's an outage and we want to automatically start the recovery option in a backup region. I'm just talking about some simple scenarios. So we don't have automation to answer your question, Christian, but we are actively exploring based on the feedback from customers and requests from customers to automate recovery in case of outage.
Awesome. So we have
Okay,
one more. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Donna.
I'm just kind of curious. So would at least the process to initiate the failover, would that at least be exposed via API, so customers could write their own automation to look at whatever variables or data points are important to them and then trigger via API?
That's available today. Yes, Donna. That's a
Awesome.
great point. That is available today. So Graph API does expose that to customers, and if customers want to build their own logic and automation for recovery, they can do that. Yes, we just don't offer that through Intune today.
Perfect.
So that's a great point. Thanks, Donna.
Mm-hmm.
We have one quick question on X. I know we're low on time, so I want to address that real fast, and then we can go into quick tips and tricks. So, question on X: if you have to have a spare PC to use Windows 365 Reserve, why not just configure that device normally?
So I assume the question's for me, but I'd answer this differently for managed versus unmanaged devices. For managed, you totally can. What we've heard from IT is typically it's going to be hardware that's sitting around. There's not a lot of spare devices in organizations held today. And so that takes a management cost, and Reserve helps provide a really easy way to keep these devices up to date, provide access to any user that you have covered by Reserve really, really quickly, and helps ensure that those users all have a consistent performance experience because it's cloud powered, it's not physical device powered. When we're talking about unmanaged devices, I think that's where the real value prop comes in. A lot of organizations are uncomfortable having access to your work resources from an unmanaged device. Cloud PCs, we still want to make sure that you have conditional access policies and secure policies to allow this, but your data is held secure and you can easily retract access to the Cloud PC from a managed or from an unmanaged device. So it's partitioned, for lack of a better word. And then from the user side, like I think we've gotten a lot of user questions too around, I don't really want my org looking at what I have on my physical or my personal laptop. Like I like having that privacy. And the Cloud PC also provides that level of privacy instead of having to enroll your personal device or feel like there's a kind of a mixed bag of personal and corporate information on your laptop. You can just quickly log into the Windows app or web client, and it's separate from your personal information on that physical PC. So it's a way to do that without blurring the lines between corporate and personal.
Yeah, and I think that also part of it is corporate policies, because basically what I've seen is a combination of, I think, 4 things. One is companies not allowing users to manually enroll their devices. 2 is that M365 apps and data can only be accessed from a managed device. 3 is you can access that managed device through Windows app, and you have to have like a phish-resistant key, so like a security key. And then 4 is when you're in that device, like Reserve, then you can't you can't copy and paste any data locally. So basically all that data stays there. So I think that's also like why that combination is more common with the enterprise stance, and that's why it's like you'd want the Reserve so you can go into that Cloud PC and do work, because a lot of times an admin or an enterprise won't allow you to just enroll your device and work. So, okay, we have 2 minutes left. Super fast wrap up. Donna, tips and trick, go.
I think the biggest tip or trick to me is the consolidation of our gateways down into a single subnet. Why this is a tip is if you're a Zscaler user, the newest versions, instead of having to manually list out each individual subnet, there's now a fancy checkbox to allow Windows 365 and AVD traffic. It used to be a huge pain in the butt to configure. It's now very simple.
Awesome. Thanks, Donna. All right, Logan, you.
Oh, wait, no, go Andre. I'm still thinking of my tip and trick.
Well, quick tip, unless you are a highly regulated industry like bank or finance institution or government, you probably don't think about business continuity and disaster recovery as something you should have all the time in place, tested regularly. So my my tip would be think about BCDR before you need it, not after you need it, because then it's usually too late. So make sure you have your business continuity, disaster recovery policies in place, test it, set up. It's insurance policy you have. So make sure you have it. That's my tip.
Can I steal Andre's too? I think that's my tip as well. No, honestly, I think it's really good. What we've heard is a lot of companies are trying to think about what happens in these big outages and big impact events that bring our businesses down. That's really costly. Think about it in advance. Think about what's available within Enterprise and Frontline and Windows 365 today. Also, for those scenarios that you aren't thinking about Frontline and Enterprise, consider Reserve. Like, I think that we're expanding the options for BCDR to new use cases, and so keep an eye out for these new announcements. Think ahead, plan ahead, and
yeah. My tips and tricks was to check out our aka.ms/W365 what's new, and also please join us for our next AMA. I know we're ran right over time. Next AMA, check out aka.ms/AMA/Windows 365 for those dates and for when you can join us again. So thank you. This was such a fun discussion. Hope y'all online learned a lot. Feel free to continue asking more questions. Just glad y'all here with us. And have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ron. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.